Hello dear learners, I am Dr. Asya Mudassir. In the previous videos, we discussed vision of teacher education in the curriculum documents of NCERT and NCTE at elementary, secondary and higher secondary levels. Now in this video, let's try to understand the organization of the components of pre-service teacher education. Dear learners, the organization of the components of pre-service teacher education means the structured design of teacher training before a person becomes a professional teacher. These programs are usually offered in courses like B.Ed, D.L.Ed and M.Ed and are guided by the policies and standards developed by the National Council for Teacher Education (NCTE). Its aim is to prepare the teachers who are knowledgeable, skilled, and reflective and are capable of handling the real classroom situations. To achieve this, teacher education programs are organized into different interrelated components. So, the teacher education programs are generally organized into four main components: foundation courses, pedagogical courses, practicum and field engagement, and school internship teaching practice. Each component plays a crucial role in developing the competent teacher. So let's understand the foundation courses first. So far as the foundation courses are concerned, they provide the theoretical base of education. They help future teachers understand why education exists, how children learn, and how society influences schooling. These courses usually include areas such as philosophy of education, sociology of education, psychology of learning, history of education, contemporary issues in education. So let's discuss each of the foundation course one by one. So the first foundation course is philosophy of education. Philosophy of education deals with the fundamental ideas, the basic ideas, values, and purposes of education. It asks important questions such as why do we educate people? What should students learn? What kind of society should education help build? It helps teachers understand the aims of education and the principles that guide teaching and learning. For example, imagine a teacher believes that education should develop critical thinking rather than only memorization. Because of this belief, the teacher designs lessons where students debate social issues, question ideas, and express their opinions instead of simply memorizing the facts. Another example, a teacher believes that education should promote cooperation and social harmony. In the classroom, the teacher organizes group projects where students help each other solve problems. Thus, philosophy influences how teachers think about education and how they teach in classrooms. Teacher education programs guided by the National Council for Teacher Education include philosophy of education so that teachers develop clear educational values and purposes. Okay. The next foundation is the sociology of education. Sociology of education studies the relationship between education and society. It helps teachers understand how factors such as culture, social class, family background, language, and community influence students' learning. It shows that schools are not isolated institutions, they are deeply connected to the society. For example, consider a classroom where students come from different cultural backgrounds. A teacher who understands sociology of education encourages students to share stories about their local traditions, festivals, and lifestyles. This makes students feel respected and helps the class learn about social diversity. Through sociology of education, teachers learn to create inclusive classrooms that respect diversity. Let's discuss the third foundational course, Psychology of Learning. Psychology of learning focuses on how students think, understand, remember, and learn new information. It studies processes like motivation, attention, memory, intelligence, and emotional development. Understanding learning psychology helps teachers choose effective teaching methods that match students' abilities and developmental stages. For example, a teacher notices that students quickly lose interest during long explanations. Using psychological principles, the teacher divides the lesson into short activities such as quizzes, demonstrations, and discussions. This keeps students attentive and improves learning. Another example, a teacher realizes that praise increases motivation. When students solve a difficult problem, the teacher acknowledges their effort by saying, "Your reasoning was excellent. You approached the problem very thoughtfully." This encouragement boosts students' confidence and motivation to learn. Next foundation course is History of Education. History of Education studies the development of educational system, ideas, and institutions over time. It helps teachers understand how education evolved, why certain educational practices exist today, how past thinkers shaped modern education. By learning history, teachers can appreciate educational progress and avoid repeating past mistakes. For example, in the past, many schools relied heavily on strict discipline and rote memorization. Students often repeated lessons without understanding them. Over time, educators realized that students learn better through activity-based and child-centered learning. Today, many classrooms include experiments, projects, and discussions showing how educational practice evolved through historical experiences. Understanding history helps teachers see how education has improved and why inclusive education is important. Next foundation is the contemporary issues in education. Contemporary issues in education focuses on current challenges and developments in the educational system. These issues include digital learning and technology in education, inclusive education for children with disabilities, gender equality in education, environmental education, mental health of students. So teachers must understand these issues so that they can respond to the modern educational challenges. For example, today many schools use digital platforms for assignments and learning resources. A teacher familiar with contemporary issues encourages students to use educational applications and online research responsibly. Teacher education programs designed according to the guidelines of National Council for Teacher Education include contemporary issues so that teachers remain aware of the changing educational realities. Now let's discuss the second component of the teacher education program, that is the pedagogical courses or the teaching methods. Pedagogical courses focus on how to teach specific subjects effectively. These courses develop teaching skills and classroom strategies. For example, pedagogy of mathematics, pedagogy of science, pedagogy of social science, pedagogy of language teaching. So let's discuss each of them one by one. The first is the pedagogy of mathematics. Pedagogy of mathematics focuses on the methods and strategies used to teach mathematics effectively. Many students feel that mathematics is difficult, but the right teaching approach can make it interesting, logical, and enjoyable. Here, the teacher learns how to plan mathematics lessons step by step, use visual aids and activities, connect mathematics with everyday life, and assesses students' understanding through practice and problem solving. For example, imagine a teacher explaining fractions in mathematics. Instead of only writing numbers on the board, the teacher brings an apple. The teacher cuts the apple into four pieces and asks students, if I eat one piece, what fraction of apple is gone? Students can clearly see that 1 out of 4 pieces is 1 by 4. Another example, to explain percentages. In mathematics, the teacher asks students to imagine a shopping sale where a product has a 20% discount. Students calculate how much money they will save. This method makes mathematics practical and relatable. Next is pedagogy of science. Pedagogy of science focuses on teaching science through experiments, observation, and inquiry rather than only memorizing the facts. Teachers learn to design experiments and demonstrations, encourage students to ask questions, connect scientific concepts with the daily life, and assesses learning through observation and practical activities. For example, suppose a teacher wants to explain air pressure. Instead of only explaining the concept, the teacher performs a simple activity. The teacher fills a glass with a water, places a card over the mouth of the glass, and then turns it upside down. Surprisingly, the cord stays in place and the water does not fall. Students become curious and ask, why did the water not fall? This curiosity leads to the explanation of the air pressure. Another example, to teach plant growth, students may grow a small plant in a pot and observe how sunlight and water affects its growth. This approach helps students learn science through real experiences. Next is pedagogy of social science. Pedagogy of social science focuses on teaching subjects like history, geography, civics, and economics in ways that develop understanding of society and critical thinking. Here, the teachers learn how to use maps and historical sources, encourage discussion and debates, connect past events with the present situations, assess the students through projects and presentations. For example, when teaching geography, instead of only describing rivers, a teacher may show students a map of India and ask them to trace the path of major rivers. Students then discuss how rivers support agriculture, transportation, and settlements. Another example, in a history lesson about ancient civilization, the teacher may ask students to imagine if you were living in an ancient city without electricity, how would daily life look? Students discuss their ideas and understand how technology has changed human life over time. Such activities make social science thought-provoking and engaging. Next is the pedagogy of language teaching. Pedagogy of language teaching focuses on teaching languages in ways that improve speaking, listening, reading, and writing skills. Here, teachers learn to use storytelling and conversations, encourage reading and creative writing, correct language errors constructively, assesses language development through communication activities. For example, the teacher asks students to describe their favorite place in their town using 5 sentences. Students practice vocabulary and sentence formation while sharing personal experiences. This approach makes language learning interactive and expressive. Now, the third component of the teacher education program is practicum and field engagement. Practicum refers to practical activities that help teachers trainee develop professional skills. These activities include preparing lesson plans, developing teaching material, classroom observation. So let's discuss them one by one. So first activity is preparing lesson plans. Preparing a lesson plan means organizing a lesson in advance so that teaching becomes clear, structured, and effective. A lesson plan helps the teacher decide what topic will be taught, what objectives students should achieve, what teaching methods will be used, what examples or activities will be included, how students' learning will be assessed. A good lesson plan ensures that the class moves step by step from introduction to understanding and finally to practice. For example, imagine a teacher planning a lesson on water conservation. The teacher begins with a question like, what would happen if water stopped coming to our homes for 1 week? And the teacher shows the pictures of the dried lakes and rivers. Discuss ways people waste water daily and ask students to suggest methods to save water. Because the teacher planned the lesson in advance, the class becomes organized, engaging, and meaningful. Next is developing teaching material. Teaching materials are tools that help teachers explain the concepts more effectively and help students understand ideas visually and practically. Teaching material may include charts, models, flashcards, maps, digital presentations, educational games. These materials make learning more interesting and easier to understand. For example, suppose a teacher wants to teach the solar system. Instead of only describing it verbally, the teacher creates a simple model using colored balls and threads to represent planets revolving around the sun. Students can see how planets move and understand the concepts much more clearly. Another example, a language teacher prepares word cards with pictures so that students learn vocabulary through visual association. Teaching material make learning interactive and memorable. Next is classroom observation. Classroom observation is an important learning activity where teacher trainees watch experienced teachers teaching in real classrooms. During observation, trainees learn how teachers introduce topics, how they explain concepts, how they manage classroom discipline, how they interacted with students, and observation helps trainees understand practical classroom strategies that cannot be learned only from books. For example, a trainee observes a teacher who begins a lesson by asking a question. Simple questions related to their daily life before introducing the main topic. The trainee notices that this approach captures students' attention immediately. Another observation could be how the teacher handles a noisy classroom calmly by engaging students in a quick activity instead of scolding them. Through observation, trainees develop professional insight into real teaching situations. And the last component is the school internship, teaching practice. This is the most important component of teacher education because it gives trainees real teaching experience. During internship, teacher trainees are placed in schools for a certain period where they teach real classes, interact with students, conduct assessments, and participate in school activities. Let's discuss them one by one. First is teaching real classes. Teaching real classes means that the teacher trainee actually teach students in a school classroom during their internship period. This experience helps trainees understand the real challenges and responsibilities of teaching. When trainees teach real classes, they learn how to explain concepts clearly, maintain students' attention, manage classroom behavior, adjust their teaching according to students' responses. For example, imagine a trainee teaching a geography lesson on climate to a class. Instead of simply reading from the textbook, the trainee begins with a question. Why do some states receive heavy rainfall while others remain dry for months? Students start sharing their ideas. The trainee then explains the concepts like monsoon winds and rainfall patterns using diagrams and examples. Through such experiences, trainees learn how to engage students and deliver lessons effectively. Next is interacting with students. Interaction with students is an essential part of teaching because learning becomes more meaningful when students actively participate in discussions and express their ideas. During internship, trainees learn how to ask thoughtful questions, encourage shy students to participate, listen carefully to students' responses, build a respectful and supportive classroom atmosphere. For example, a trainee notices that some students hesitate to speak in front of the whole class. To help them participate, the trainee organizes peer discussions where students first talk with a partner and then share their ideas with the class. This simple strategy helps students gain confidence and express themselves more freely. Another example, a trainee asks a student to share one interesting fact about their hometown. Students feel excited because their personal experiences become the part of the learning process. Such interaction makes classrooms lively and engaging. Next is conducting assessments. Assessments help teachers understand how well students have understood a lesson. During internship, trainees learn how to design and conduct different forms of assessments. These may include short quizzes, oral questioning, assignments, classroom activities, and projects. Assessment is not only about marks, it also helps the teachers identify the students' strengths and learning difficulties. For example, after teaching a lesson on environmental conservation, the teacher trainee asks students to write three simple actions they can take at home to protect the environment. Instead of memorizing definitions, students reflect on practical ways to apply what they learned. Another example, a trainee asks students to draw a simple diagram explaining the water cycle. Through this activity, the trainee can see whether students really understood the concept. This type of assessment checks understanding rather than rote memorization. Next is participating in school activities. Teaching is not limited to classroom lessons. Teachers also play an important role in various school activities that support students' overall development. During internship, trainees participate in activities such as morning assemblies, cultural programs, educational exhibitions, sports events, and awareness campaigns. These activities help trainees develop leadership, teamwork, and communication skills. For example, a trainee helps organize a science exhibition day where students display small science models such as volcanic eruptions, volcanic experiments, or renewable energy models. The trainee guides students in explaining their models to visitors. Another example, during the morning assembly, a trainee presents a short motivational talk about honesty and responsibility, encouraging students to practice these values in daily life. Through participation in such activities, trainees realize that teachers help shape students' character and confidence, not just academic knowledge. So, in conclusion, we can say school internship allows teacher trainee to experience real teaching situations by teaching real classes, interacting with students, conducting assessments, and participating in school activities. Future teachers develop confidence, professional skills, and practical understanding of school life, which is an important goal of teacher education programs guided by the National Council for Teacher Education. So at last, in this conclusion, we can say that the organization of the components of pre-service teacher education ensures that teachers receive both theoretical and practical experiences through foundation courses, pedagogy, practicum activities, and school internship. Teacher education programs aim to prepare teachers who are professionally competent, reflective, and capable of creating meaningful learning experiences for students as envisioned by National Council for Teacher Education. So this was all for today. Thank you.